Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, Dexter Lawrence trade. Is it actually possible for the Las Vegas Raiders, and should Raider Nation want it? I would say it's probably one of the top questions that I personally was asked this week. Also, since the New York Giants star defensive tackle requested a trade, I'm going to look at some players at the end of today's show that I could see Klint Kubiak and John Spytek potentially trading at some point this offseason. If you did not see the news from Adam Schefter, this happened yesterday, and I know that this is big-time NFL news. I did put out a little bit of a story on the Raiders Report already around this, but I want to be clear. When I first saw this, I instantly thought there's no way on planet Earth that the Raiders are going to be the team that ends up making this trade, which is why you didn't get a video from me. But the reason why I'm making one is because of just the amount of fans that reach out to me asking, should the Raiders go get Dexter Lawrence? But Lawrence and the Giants have been through 2 seasons attempting to negotiate a contract reflecting his value to the Giants over the last 3 years. But there has not been any progress, per sources from Jordan Renan. Asked around the league, and the general consensus appears to be that if the Giants are willing to trade Dexter Lawrence, the return would be in the range of a late first-round pick to second-rounder. So knowing that, my question to all of you out there is this: should the Raiders trade for Dexter Lawrence? I want you to type trade, or I want you to type pass down below. I know it's early on in today's show, but I'm hitting you with a question right from the jump because this is why we're here after all. Here's my answer in terms of whether or not the Raiders should go out and trade for Dexter Lawrence. Obviously, I think that the Raiders should, because he's an outstanding player. If you're the Raiders and you think that you're an instant contender, if you think that you are going to compete for a Super Bowl this year, I'm looking at Klint Kubiak, I'm looking at John Spytek. Do you think that you're going to compete for a Super Bowl? If that answer is yes, then let's go make the trade for Dexter Lawrence. Here's why it's no, though. If you're on the camp that no, then you're okay with being patient. You're okay about building for the future. You know that we might not be a Super Bowl team now, but that doesn't mean that we can't be a Super Bowl team 2 to 3 years down the road. And just because a player is available doesn't mean that the Raiders should go out and get him, right? Like for me, I'm trying to save up to buy money for a house. If a nice car comes available, well, sometimes I got to say no to that car because I'm trying to buy my house in the future. And I just want to say this: I don't see the Raiders being the team that ends up trading for Dexter Lawrence. But for the sake of the Raiders Report, let's talk about first the reason why I would want the Raiders to make this move. And then I'm going to give you reasons why it ain't going to happen. The first reason of why I know that fans are excited and why people are talking about this as much as they are, he's an outstanding player. I mean, you can't tell me that Dexter Lawrence is not one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. And that's even him coming off of a down season this past year with the New York Football Giants. But for an organization, like, I believe building in the trenches. And I think there's a lot of other people out there that also, believe in building the trenches. But when it comes to Dexter Lawrence, like, he does so many different things for you from top to bottom. He makes everybody else around you better. And, when I talk about the defensive line a lot of the times, we talk about nose tackle. And Dexter Lawrence is arguably the best nose tackle right now in the league. And if you want to get the most out of a Tyree Wilson, you want to get the most out of a player like a Max Crosby in the future, then I think you should look at somebody like Lawrence, who at 340 pounds at age 28, he's really going to be able to fill up the middle of that field. And he does it at an extremely high rate. He does it at a very good rate. And I know that when you talk about age, 28, 29 years old, that can worry some people a little bit. But I'll also say at the defensive tackle spot, it's been one position on the defensive side of the ball that has shown that you can play into your late 30s at defensive tackle. I think it's that grown man strength. Let's go to the next reason why I think the Raiders should try to make a move for him. Again, in a perfect world, if it's a cheap deal and Dexter Lawrence wants to come play for the Raiders, you at least pick up the phone, you make the call, because it does fill a massive, massive need at this nose tackle position. And I know the Raiders are going to run a 3-4. They're also going to run a bunch of different fronts based on a lot of things that I've heard around Kubiak, based on a lot of things that I've heard from Rob Leonard. To think that we're just going to run a 3-4 and only have 3 down defensive linemen is naive, probably even on my part, probably overhyped it a little bit too much. But the Raiders are going to go with a lot of 4 fronts. They're going to go with a lot of 3 fronts. Like, they are going to mix and match the same way, the Seattle Seahawks did last season. And when I look at this nose tackle spot, I like Adam Butler. I like John Ulalu, but there's still a lot of unknowns from top to bottom with a lot of these players. And I saw this stat from Warren Sharp, and I wanted to be able to show all of y'all because it was one of the coolest stats that I saw. And it was nose tackle pressures since the year 2022. Dexter Lawrence leads the NFL with 108. The next closest guy is Vita Vea. Vita Vea, 32. DJ Jones, DJ Reader, 28. Jordan Davis, 26. I know that the idea of trading for Dexter Lawrence, to me, in my opinion, is probably even less than a 1% chance. But I also know that fans are going to get excited about big-name players in certain situations because he's a big-name guy. There's not a lot of stuff going on in the NFL, and he's clearly a great fit with this team, and he's clearly a great fit, I would say, on just about any single NFL roster out there from top to bottom. The other reason why I can understand Raiders fans wanting to go out and get him, it is a Christian Wilkins replacement. And I'm not just saying that because they both played at Clemson. They both played on the same team, both drafted in, I believe, the same year, which was 2019. But, we have been looking for an interior presence, and I know the Raiders clearly wanted Wilkins to work. They gave him $27 million per year. For reference, they also just gave Tyler Linderbaum $27 million per year. Clearly, they valued Wilkins, and they wanted him to help out on this team. I don't know whatever the situation is going to be from a cap standpoint, but all I know from a football standpoint, Dexter Lawrence, he's an outstanding player, fills a big-time nose tackle need, and he would help us replace Christian Wilkins. For all those reasons, yes, I would love for the Raiders in a perfect world if we're playing Madden to go out and make the trade. But coming up here on the Raiders Report, I'm going to tell you why I just don't see the trade happening. And sometimes I kind of feel bad for saying this, but in all honesty, man, if I haven't proven to you in the 8 years of me doing this show, my team, if we haven't proven to you, if I'm not talking about it, it's because I don't think it's worth talking about. I love rumors, I love news, I love talking about certain things, but I talk about topics that I believe are important or that are important for Raiders fans out there. So the reason why I didn't talk about Dexter Lawrence when it first happened is because in my mind, I was like, this trade is never going to happen. But I want people to hit that subscribe button. I want people to look for free Raiders videos every single day. The fact that we're 37 subs away from 223,000, just continuously shows that we are growing so much of an amazing community here, and I want people to be about this community. I also want people, though, to be smarter Raiders fans. I'm not saying that I'm the reason why you're going to be smarter fan, but you're going to be a smarter fan from watching this show. You're going to be able to learn a lot more about this team. You're also going to learn a lot more about the fan base. You guys are going to be able to help out each other. I mean, it happens every single day when I go live, when I drop a video. I look at the comments all the time. But the reason why I want y'all to watch a Dexter Lawrence show like we're talking about today is because you should go, well, Mitch didn't talk about it. That means it's probably not all that important. And I hate to say it, but it is the truth of how I feel about it. So here's why the Raiders shouldn't go out and why they shouldn't trade for Dexter Lawrence. Let's talk about the first reason. Rebuild. We are a rebuild team. You don't go out and sign a bridge quarterback in Kirk Cousins, draft the number one overall guy in Fernando Mendoza. I know we just had a really bad season, and I know we've done a lot of great things in free agency, and I'm excited too. But let's stick to the plan. Let's stick to the rebuilding plan of let's try to get to 8-9 wins this year, 10-11, and then when we're in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, maybe that's the year where we finally make that big leap forward. I'm not saying that we have to wait for that year, but I think we have to know where we're at. And you have to have that understanding of, yeah, sure, I want to be able to buy $1 million home for me and my wife, but I can really only afford a $400,000 dollar home. That's even here in Dallas, Texas. I don't even think I can afford that. I'll be completely transparent with you. But you guys catch my drift. Just because you want something doesn't mean that you can go out and get it. There's a lot of good defensive tackles in the draft, and the Raiders have shown value in those DTs. Do I think that Aidan McDonald's as good as Dexter Lawrence right now? No. But do I think that Aidan McDonald could be a really good defensive tackle for the next 3 years and maybe turn into a player, I don't know, down the road like a Dexter Lawrence? Potentially. And I think that Raider fans should also buy into the idea that Rob Leonard, our new DC, is a great, great guy for helping out players on that defensive line. So if you believe in Rob Leonard, if you believe in our staff, I think you should want to draft a defensive tackle instead of going out and trading for a guy that you're going to have to pay a lot of money to, which brings me to my next point here, cap space. And yeah, we don't have a lot of cap space now. I know at the time that I'm recording this video, the Charles Snowden, Jordan Meredith deals have become officially official. They're going to be $3.6 million on the books, which, again, over the cap and Spytek already had. I know the Raiders signed Ian Thomas today to a one-year deal. That's going to be a very cheap one-year vet minimum. But not only are you, kind of impacting the Raiders for this season, you're impacting the Raiders' cap space obviously down the line. And unless you think that you're in a Super Bowl win now mode, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to pay that type of money to Dexter Lawrence because he's going to want a hefty price tag after you trade for him. And then the biggest reason, it's the trade cost. Like, I know a lot of fans look at what we have in terms of draft compensation and go, why can't the Raiders make the trade? I'm going to show you what everybody here at Chat Sports offered or was willing to offer from their team for Dexter Lawrence, and then you're going to go, yeah, I don't see why on God's green earth the New York Giants would ever even consider a trade from the Raiders. So first off, I talked to Marshall Green, and I was like, Marsh, what do you think, the exact details would be around a Dexter Lawrence trade? And he said, well, if Quinnen Williams went for a first, a second, and a player like Mozzie Smith, that's what I would want from, any team that makes the trade. So if you're the Raiders, to me, in my mind, this is like a, let's say, I don't know, Jonnu Lalu, second-round pick this year, 36, and then a 2027 first. Does anybody here for the Raiders want to give that up? No, of course not. So then I asked Chuggs, what would the Houston Texans be willing to offer for Dexter Lawrence? A first-round pick at 28, third-round pick 69, and then a tight end like Cade Stover for Dexter Lawrence. The Minnesota Vikings, I talked to our guy Patrick Seatman here at Chat Sports. Pick 18, pick 82, Dexter Lawrence. You're going to see a common theme here. The problem is we have the number 1 overall pick. You're not going to trade the number 1 overall pick. So if all these other teams are willing to give up a first, and I don't think any Raider fan wants to give up a first for Dexter Lawrence, then it's really going to be hard to get into a competition for a guy when you don't want to spend when everybody else is willing to spend. Talk to our Bengals guy here at Chat Sports, and they said Dexter Lawrence for a second-round pick 41, a first-round pick next season, and then their first-round pick from just a season ago in Shamar Stewart. I mean, would you give up Tyree Wilson, your first-round pick next year, and pick 36? I wouldn't. I'll tell you that right now. I wouldn't do it. Then, what about the Chargers? Our Chargers guy. First round pick 22, 86 in the third. Wide receiver Quentin Johnston. We don't have the players. We don't have the picks to be able to make a Dexter Lawrence trade work. Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. They said, all right, we'll give up pick 30 and we'll give up pick 74 for Dexter Lawrence. And then here is my God honest, best offer that I would be willing to give the New York Giants. A second-round pick, number 36 overall, and then a fourth-round pick at 102. I think if you were to ask a lot of Raiders fans, would you do this? I bet you there's fans out there that go, no, that's too much. That's too much. I don't want to give up all that. And if your mindset was this is too much, there is no chance in hell you're going to get Dexter Lawrence on the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll tell you this right now. If the Raiders told me that this is what it would cost to go out and get Dexter Lawrence, I would do it. I would. I'd give up pick 36 and pick 102 in a heartbeat for Dexter Lawrence, and I'd go give him the money. But I don't think that that's the price tag. I'm not saying no to that trade. I'm saying no to the idea of we have to be able to compete with those other offers, and I don't think that we have the ability to compete with those other offers because I think first-round pick next year is very valuable, and our first-round pick this year is more valuable than just about anything. For those reasons, the Raiders will not trade for Dexter Lawrence because Dexter Lawrence doesn't want to come to a team, and the Giants don't want to make a deal with the Raiders unless they had the proper details to be able to get it done. So coming up here next, I wanted to just sit here and talk about some potential Raiders trade candidates because this is the part of the offseason where trade rumors happen, right? Dexter Lawrence trade rumors happen, and then I get people asking me, well, what could be involved in a trade, this and that. So I don't want to just talk about Dexter Lawrence today. I do also want to just be able to provide some context of, if Dexter Lawrence can request a trade, who are some players that maybe the Raiders could trade away before the NFL draft or even after? I will get into that in just a moment, but I am doing a special deal while I am live right now, and who knows, maybe my bosses will forget about it. You can maybe check it out tomorrow when this video ends up dropping. But if anybody out there wants to save $15, if you add our Mendoza shirt, whether it's the black, whether it's the white one, add it to your cart, okay? Then the next thing that I want you to do is add either our hoodie from We're Kubiak, or you can add a t-shirt. If you add the hoodie or the t-shirt and you combined We're Kubiak with our Mendoza shirt, I'm going to give you $15 off that order. The way that I believe it ends up doing it is when I did it earlier, I put a sweatshirt in the cart and then I put a t-shirt in the cart for the Mendoza, and it just took $15 off the Mendoza one, so $15 off your order. The reason why I'm doing this special is because the Raiders offseason program begins today, and we're Kubiak. Also, top 30 visit for Fernando Mendoza today, and he's in the building. So if you want to get both of those, chatsports.com/RRshop to save $15 off your order. I was under the impression this deal was only going to be valid today while I'm live. Who knows, though? I mean, maybe they'll forget. Maybe you guys can still take advantage of the deal tomorrow. We'll see. All right, let's go into some Raiders trade candidates, and I kind of want to hit these a little bit quicker. First name I'm going to bring up is Aidan O'Connell. And I do want to be clear, just because I'm talking about somebody doesn't mean that I would trade them away. This is literally just like my personal opinion. And because the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza, because the Raiders just signed Kirk Cousins, because AOC is in the final year of his deal, I wouldn't be shocked if Aidan wanted to be traded away. I also wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders were like, you know what? Maybe we just go out and sign somebody, and is there a team out there willing to give up a 6th-round pick for a quarterback that started 20 games? Like, could the Raiders potentially do something like that? I will say I'd rather hang on to AOC. I think that he's a really good backup quarterback, and I think with this quarterback room between Mendoza, Aidan O'Connell, and Kirk Cousins, you're going to be able to get the best out of all of those guys. And if at the end of the day you're signing Kirk, then we should also be able to hang on to Aidan, because I do think AOC and Cousins will truly help you get the best version of Fernando Mendoza. And at the end of the day, that's why you decided to sign Kirk Cousins. Let's go to another name here that I think could potentially be a player on the trade block. It's going to be Tyree Wilson. And Tyree's in the final year of his contract, and technically, it hasn't happened yet, but the Raiders have until May 1st to decline his 5th-year option. The Raiders are going to decline his 5th-year option. There's no way that you pick it up. Doesn't make sense for the Raiders at all. Now, for Tyree, I do think that a 3-4 defense is actually really going to help him, because he's meant to play in a 3 technique. Like, that's what he's best at. He is a 3 technique at defensive tackle, but you can also obviously line him up as a defensive end, and I'm not saying that you can't line him up as an outside linebacker, but stand him up, put him out there on the outside. I think with that type of versatility, you're going to be able to do a lot of truly different things from top to bottom. And because this is Tyree Wilson's contract prove-it year, maybe you get a little bit more of an extra motivated version of that. And, you got Rob Leonard, you got Travis Smith now part of your defensive line. I'm hoping that this is the year that Tyree Wilson gets it done. But I'll also say, there's been a lot of conversations around defensive tackles, a lot of conversations around Max Crosby, and Max isn't going to go anywhere. He's not going to get traded. So I do wonder if, because of all those conversations, because of all the trades we've seen at the defensive line spot, does somebody look at Tyree Wilson and go, that's a former number 7 overall pick? Somebody that I believe Dan Orlovsky had ranked as his number 1 edge over Will Anderson and a whole bunch of other players out there. But this was somebody that people looked at and said, that's going to be somebody that's elite in the NFL. Do you look at it as that's a Tyree Wilson issue, or do you look at it as that's a Las Vegas Raiders issue? There's going to be teams out there that look at it as a Las Vegas Raiders issue. Could you get a 5th-round pick for Tyree? I don't know. I'd entertain the idea. And then the final name I'm going to throw out there, Dante Thornton Jr. And, I've kind of been saying this for a few weeks, for a few months, that I had a source reach out to me, again, a little bit while ago, and they flat out told me that Dante is not a lock to make this Raiders roster in 2026. And, I heard that, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we've kind of talked about it on this show from time to time. And then the Raiders go out, and you sign Jalen Nailor, 3 years, $35 million, but you did it early in that offseason free agency period. But then think about all the top 30 visits that the Raiders have had at that wide receiver position. Think about how many true X's that the Raiders have brought in. And this organization has no ties to Dante at all. And I've met Thornton. I've met his agent. He's an outstanding young man. I will always wish him nothing but the best. But if there are organizations out there, and if there's a coaching staff that's concerned that Dante's not even close to being ready, then, you could see him very much so get moved on from him. I mean, look at these top 30 visits on the offensive side of the ball. They got Mendoza, Kalen Black running back, and then it's a bunch of wide receivers and a bunch of big guys that are going to probably take away Dante Thornton Jr.'s role. And I know that he's an athletic freak, and I bet you there are some people that look at the 6'4", the 205 pounds, the fact that he runs a 4.35 40-yard dash. And, there's a part of me where I want to go, I hope that he can get it together, because a guy like Dante Thornton Jr. needs a good coaching staff. He didn't have one last season. I think he's going to get one this year, and he can be that deep field threat. But at the same time, If a team, I think, offered the Raiders a 7th-round pick right now for Thornton, I think the Raiders would take it. So, will it happen? I don't know. But those are some Raiders trade candidates that I got for you. Friendly reminder out there, if any Raiders trade happens, I will be live on this show. We'll be talking about it. We'll be breaking it all down for you guys. If Raiders, again, any type of big-time move, I love talking trades. I think it's one of the most fun things to be able to do on this program. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on. And if you got anybody asking you, Mitch, anybody, could the Raiders trade for Dexter Lawrence? It's not that I don't think that he's a good fit. He's a good fit on any NFL team. It's just we don't have the right draft compensation or the correct timeline to go out and make the trade a possibility.